Hey guys, what's up? My name is Fox and welcome to my video guide for the Abyssal Fracture Extreme trial in which we fight Zeromus X. In my opinion, the fight is not too hard and should definitely be puggable. Let's have a look at what Square Enix cooked for us this time in the latest X trial of the Endwalker expansion. Before you pull, you probably want to call your position as we need them for a specific mechanic in the fight. As usual, I suggest M1 and main tank to the northwest, M2 and off tank to the northeast, R1 and healer 1 to the southwest, and R2 and healer 2 to the southeast. Just like pretty much every other raid in XIV, Zeromus X starts off with big raid-wide damage, which is called Abyssal Nox. In this case though, you are being dropped to 1 HP and get a Doom debuff, which requires the healers to heal everyone to full to survive. Mitigation here is useless, so you can save it. A few seconds later, you will see white glowing lines indicating a small circular explosion where they end. Once you see the first safe spot, you immediately know the second one, as these patterns are always either north safe into northwest or northwest safe into north. Super easy and simple, no overthinking required here. Time to stack up as we now have Sable Thread as the next mechanic, which is a big line stack basically. Tanks need to be in the front as the first two targets take additional damage compared to the rest of the group, just like you know it from Harrowing Hell. Tanks are advised to pop a cooldown. But don't pop them all, as we are now following this up with a big AoE Tankbuster on both tanks, so make sure you still have some mitigation. The first big mechanic we see is Visceral Whirl, nothing too fancy to start out though. All you gotta do is to move either to the front or back safe spot as it is indicated, but the second part is where it gets a bit more interesting. Once the safe spot resolves, you will see 3 X's appear in the arena and we have to find another safe spot. In order to resolve this mechanic, I will help you with a few hints. Keep in mind this is only applicable to the most northern safe spot. First, your actual safe spot will always be on the opposite side of where you went for the first safe spot. That means if you went west first, you will be heading east and vice versa. This already makes it much easier. For the eastern safe spots, we have 3 patterns. First, look if there is an X on the east side of the map. If not, your safe spot is northeast, quite simple. For the 2 other patterns, you will have an X on the northeast part of the arena. In this case, you simply look at where the furthest X is. If it is south, you go opposite, so to the north. If it is west, again you go opposite to the east. I hope this makes sense. I really try to find an easily digestible and quick way to find the safe spots. For the western patterns, it's a bit more difficult. You only have one single scenario where an X spawns on the northwest platform, in which case you simply go north of it. In a different pattern, an X is in the middle. In this case, you go most west of the northwestern platform. And in the last remaining pattern with no X on your platform and no X in the middle, you simply go to the northwest corner of the arena. This sounds way more complicated than it is, to be honest, and I'm sure you will have the safe spots memorized very quickly. Next up, we have Flare, which is a simple stack in the tower as 4 mechanic. Tanks and melees to the front, range and healers to the back. After soaking the damage, another can you spot the safe zone mechanic. This one though is, in my opinion, much easier and quite intuitive. You have 3 zones that can be safe: full to the side, middle, and slightly off the middle. My personal way of checking these was to first look for the side safe spot. If that one wasn't available, I'd check the middle one, and if that one wasn't available, I'd move to the northeast melee safe zone. Void Bio will be your next mechanic, which is just a glorified Visceral Whirl. We dodge green balls, move to one safe spot, and move again to a safe spot. The balls really hurt a lot, so try to dodge them, but healers can actually heal you through it, as mine did once or twice. Then it's time for Big Bang, which simply put is dodge AoEs and dodge other players. Best is to spread as melees in the front, range healers in the back of course. Once the circle AoE is resolved, gather up, mitigate and shield for the actual Big Bang, which is party-wide damage and a damage over time on everyone. You might see in the video how everyone got some debuffs, but let's have a look at them later once they actually come into action. Next up, you will see Void Meteor, which at first looks crazy but actually isn't. Just simply stack in the middle in melee range and you will be fine. These meteors don't hurt that much. But what follows it is probably the most common wipe reason in this fight. 4 players, either DPS or supports, will be getting a tether with an indicator. Your goal is simple: stretch the tether and place yourself as far away from the back as possible and as close as possible to the meteors that are already in the arena. Second group will do exactly the same, stretch tether and place meteors. The reason this mechanic is harder is because you cannot overlap any existing meteors, nor can you overlap with each other. This is indicated with the tether turning red. In this case, it would be a party-wide vibe. The best way in my opinion is to have 2 people on each side, for example tank 1 and healer 1 on the west and the other 2 on the right. Same goes for DPS. You should notice that there are specific spots in some patterns that allow you to go really far in, and you should really do this so the second set of meteors can still be placed properly. Keep in mind that there is 1 meteor in the back that you also cannot overlap with. Once dissolved, all meteors will explode with small AoEs, so dodge accordingly. After those explosions, everyone should stack in the middle, as we will be getting tethers where supports are tethered to DPS, which is again followed by Visceral Whirl as we know it. In this case, the supports need to go to the south safe spot and DPS to the north safe spot to break these chains. Unfortunately, tanks cannot get uptime with this strat, but I'm sure some galaxy brain gamer will come up with something for those poor tanks. At the same time Visceral Whirl resolves, your first debuff, Acceleration Bomb, will reach 0. This means you have to stop any movement or any action at that given moment. Best advice from me is to untarget or to put away your weapon. Then of course don't forget to move to the safe spot of the X's as we discussed them earlier. Once you are in the safe spot, the next debuff will go off, causing spread AoEs on everyone. This is mostly just a wing it mechanic, to be honest. After these resolve, the last part of this mechanic starts. Tanks will be getting the usual dark matter Tankbuster and spread to their sides. The people with forked lightning need to make sure to not stack with the party here. As a melee, you can be in the front middle to avoid the busters and resolve your forked lightning, and the stack marker simply gathers in the center of the arena while the remaining person with forked lightning is anywhere else on the map. Next up we have Black Hole, very similar to as it is in normal mode, with the difference that the player manually drops the black hole. And remember, anything that goes into a black hole is gone forever. So the first step is to see where the boss is looking at, because he will also be firing the massive beam across the whole arena. You preferably want to put the black hole on the same side as to where he is looking at, slightly below the middle. This way you avoid getting clipped by the beam and the party can simply move along with the beam, dodging the expanding black hole. If you drop it somewhere else further away, it would be very nice for a healer to rescue that person. So healers, be on the lookout. This is followed by Big Crunch, which is again just open your eyes, dodge, and damage that needs to be healed through and mitigated. Now we have a repeat of the opening mechanic Abyssal Nox, dodge as you need of course, but now we have Sable Thread happening instantly. My personal suggestion is to take the lasers where you end up dodging here, as it minimizes movement in general and makes it easier. Just make sure that if you have the beam on you, you either stand completely still or instantly move to let your fellow peers know what your plan is. Onto the final mechanic before we have a change of scenery. Again, 2 towers appear in the middle of the arena. This time we have light parties take them according to their numbers. We have to pay attention to the cast names, as they are either Branding Flare or Sparking Flare. Branding means stack, sparking means spread. So depending on the cast, you either stack with your partner in the corner or you spread away from them, which happens after the soaking of the tower, of course. So, after you move into the corner, make sure to not get clipped by the outgoing AoEs from the towers that you just soaked, and then move accordingly. One other thing that will be happening here is that 2 players will get a following AoE marker indicated by the arrows below their character. In this case, make sure that you are the person in the full corner. Once the stack or the spread resolves, you then simply move clockwise to the next corner. If you started northeast, you move to southeast. If you started southeast, you move to southwest, and so on. You get the idea. Everyone else in the middle will be safe, and the big ball AoEs will be dropping on the edge of the arena without hitting anyone else. From here onwards, Zeromus will simply repeat mechanics we have seen already until you push him to 20%, in which case he will cast Rend the Rift. This phase starts with random AoEs, just dodge them as necessary. The next cast you will see is Nostalgia, which simply put are a lot of rate-wide hits, slam mitigation on there, and heals as needed. Up next is Flow of the Abyss, where you will notice that Zeromus is tethered to some weird looking AoE on the side of the arena, which, as you might already guess, will be unsafe once the cast ends. At the same time, you will either have single markers, duo stacks, or a group stack. In case of the single markers, spread with melees to the front and range to the back, place the AoE that will last for a while, and make sure to then immediately move back into the middle, which is now safe again. In case of the stacks, which are 2-player stacks, stack according in the front with Healer 1 most left, Main Tank next, Off Tank next, and Healer 2 on the most right. This of course with their respective partner from the corner mechanic. Group stack is of course quite simple, as you simply take it in the front middle together. Keep in mind Zeromus will repeat this combo multiple times in the last phase, and Flow of the Abyss might be in the front, so the whole movement needs to move to the middle then. Just basically stay in melee range for your 4 melee players. Last new mechanic is Chasmic Nails, which are just big slice AoEs that appear in a certain order. The easiest way is to look at the first one and dodge into it once it has resolved. Keep in mind at the same time AoEs appear on the floor. I do believe you can bait those, so in an optimal scenario the group stacks and then moves for Chasmic Nail, but in reality this will be a mess and you just dodge as much as you can. If you happen to get hit by Chasmic Nail, you will take damage and get a nasty dot, which though can be removed with Izuna or by a bard of course. So keep that in mind. And voila, from here on it simply rinse and repeat until he enrages at around 11 minutes. I hope this was helpful and that you enjoyed it. If you did, you can leave a like or maybe even hit the subscribe button for my channel. I would really appreciate that. I know it's been a while since I made a video, specifically a guide for Final Fantasy XIV, but of course I wanted to try my hand at it again because I like making guides. So I really hope that you like it too and that you enjoyed it, and on that note, as always, I'm wishing you an amazing rest of your day wherever you live.